morning, this is the Paradise Unicorn Priestess bringing you day 71 of A Course in Miracles, the Yin translation where we use female words. This would be March 12th if you're starting at the new year, and Zoria has become a regular feature of these recordings. She is running all over Tarnation, barking like crazy at something. Don't know if that will be accompanying this entire thing today or not. I just kind of assume she knows what she's doing. The correction of error. The alertness of the ego to the errors of other egos is not the kind of vigilance the Holy Spirit would have you maintain. Egos are critical in terms of the kind of sense they stand for. They understand this kind of sense because it is sensible to them. To the Holy Spirit, it makes no sense at all. To the ego, it is kind and right and good to point out errors and correct them. This makes perfect sense to the ego, which is unaware of what errors are and what correction is. Errors are of the ego, and correction of errors lies in the relinquishment of the ego. When you correct a sister, you are telling her that she is wrong. She may be making no sense at the time, and it is certain that if she is speaking from the ego, she will not be making sense. But your task is still to tell her she is right. You do not tell her this verbally if she is speaking foolishly. She needs correction at another level because her error is at another level. She is still right because she is a child of God. Her ego is always wrong, no matter what it says or does. If you point out the errors of your sister's ego, you must be seeing through yours because the Holy Spirit does not perceive her errors. This must be true, since there is no communication between the ego and the Holy Spirit. The ego makes no sense, and the Holy Spirit does not attempt to understand anything that arises from it. Since she does not understand it, she does not judge it, knowing that nothing the ego makes means anything. When you react at all to errors, you are not listening to the Holy Spirit. She has merely disregarded them, and if you attend to them, you are not hearing her. If you do not hear her, you are listening to your ego and making as little sense as the sister whose errors you perceive. This cannot be correction. Yet it is more than merely a lack of correction for her. It is the giving up of correction in yourself. When a sister behaves insanely, you can heal her only by perceiving the sanity in her. If you perceive her errors and accept them, you are accepting yours. If you want to give yours over to the Holy Spirit, you must do this with hers. Unless this becomes the one way in which you handle all errors, you cannot understand how all errors are undone. How is this different from telling you that what you teach you learn? Your sister is as right as you are, and if you think she is wrong, you are condemning yourself. You cannot correct yourself. Is it possible, then, for you to correct another? Yet you can see her truly because it is possible for you to see yourself truly. It is not up to you to change your sister, but merely to accept her as she is. Her errors do not come from the truth that is in her, and only this truth is yours. Her errors cannot change this, and can have no effect at all on the truth in you. To perceive errors in anyone and to react to them as if they were real is to make them real to you. You will not escape paying the price for this, not because you are being punished for it, but because you are following the wrong guide and will therefore lose your way. Your sister's errors are not of her, any more than yours are of you. Accept her errors as real and you have attacked yourself. If you would find your way to keep it, see only truth beside you, for you walk together. The Holy Spirit in you forgives all things, in you and in your sister. Her errors are forgiven with yours. Atonement is no more separate than love. Atonement cannot be separate because it comes from love. Any attempt you make to correct a sister means that you believe correction by you is possible, and this can only be the arrogance of the ego. Correction is of God, who does not know of arrogance. The Holy Spirit forgives everything because God created everything. Do not undertake her function, or you will forget yours. Accept only the function of healing in time, because that is what time is for. God gave you the function to create an eternity. You do not need to learn that, but you do need to learn it to want it. For that all learning was made. This is the Holy Spirit's use of an ability that you do not need, but that you made. Give it to her. You do not understand how to use it. She will teach you how to see yourself without condemnation by learning how to look on everything without it. Condemnation will then not be real to you, and all your errors will be forgiven. We want all our errors to be forgiven, right? Seems like a good thing. Lesson 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course, yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that, although this hope has always failed, there's still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine, seek but do not find. What could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because by following her direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided, and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. How can you escape all this? Very simply. The idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. Hers is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. Hers is the only plan that must succeed. Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of her plan, which cannot fail. Begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contributions to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first, and in the first is your release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking God to reveal her plan to us. Ask her very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say and to whom? Give her full charge of the rest of the practice period and let her tell you what needs to be done by you in her plan for your salvation. She will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear her voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercise proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation, and only hers, will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today, and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only her plan will work. Try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. Today we are not correcting Zoria's ego that wants to bark and bark and bark. We are just looking to correct our own ego and to ask love, which is God, what we ought to be doing and what we ought to be saying and to whom. Happy practicing.